by my kindergartners and by others because it's shorter, like me. The theme of this session is family engagement. We are here because we know the power of children's early years. What we need are ways to share that message. We've heard some of them, and I'm going to talk about some others that I've tried. Try being the descriptive word. A book, which I've published both in soft cover and on Amazon as an ebook. I've also got a website, radio shows with podcasts. I've done lots of community events at baby fairs and at Children, Success by Six, and other events. Also a few videos, and what I'm going to try next is webinars. For someone who is technology challenged like me, these may not be options, but for some of you, these are ways to get your messages out to parents. In just a moment, I'm going to do the math for one of the quickest ways to engage families. But first of all, here's a play on words. We are here because we see the big picture, the macro. But for parents, they are at the very center, at the micro. They have a different perspective. Now, the macro is the big picture. The opposite of big is small. Small or little. But there's another word for small or big, and that's minute. But minute can also be pronounced as minute. Parents have the advantage of the minutes, of being in the moment. At some moment, parents will attend a meeting, a program, an event, something where they need to register their child or children for preschool, play school, daycare, baby or toddler group, whatever. At that time, parents are focused on their child and on something they feel is important. They are expecting information and they are open to ideas. So it's a golden opportunity for you to give them that information. But you know, it's not easy to know what to say or how to make the most of that short time. I'm hoping in the minutes that I have left to give each and every one of you a framework for information, a strategy that you can use to hook those parents. Now, there are about 80 chairs in this room. Remember, though, I'm in kindergarten, so I like easy math. I'll just round that number to about 100. Now, if we each share that message with just 10 people, that makes 1,000. If we can share it with 10 more people, that makes 10,000. Now, if those 10,000 people share with just 10, look what happens to the number. We're up to 100,000 people. One more round. And the message about the importance of the early years has been heard by 1 million people. And you've heard from the other presenters, that's possible. That's not an impossible dream. But how do we get this message to them? I have a question for you. How many of you feel comfortable talking in front of a group? Could you put your hand up? How many of you feel uncomfortable about talking in front of a group? I see a few more hands. Some of them kind of tentative. You know, I feel like I'm in a wind in position. Because if you feel comfortable talking in front of a group, these are just some bonus points. If you don't feel comfortable, I'm going to give you a way that you can feel confident in your message and grow the confidence in yourself. This is a condensed version, so leave spaces in your listening. Instead of a handout, I'll just jot down the points, and you can use that to help your memory. In a group, I first begin with an introduction, and I thank the parents, the caregivers, the grandparents that have come for their support. I use one quick fact. 90% of the brain develops by the age of 5. I then ask the people who they think has the most influence on children's lives by the age of 5. It's not the teacher. They identify themselves. Now that you have their attention, I use a piggy bank. Please pardon the drawing. With a brain on it, to be like a brain bank. I give families 5 ways that they can have a positive impact on children's learning and development. The first one is read. And that's one finger. Reading and sharing books is one of the most powerful ways to enrich children's brains. By reading 3 or 4 books a day, a few times a week, that can be 25 books in just a week. In a month, that's 100 books. In a year, about 1,000 or more. By the time children get to school, parents have downloaded an entire library into their children's brains. That's powerful. The second way is with words, and there's 2. When we read and talk to kids, sing, tell stories, and use words in other ways, their brains make about 700 connections a second. In 5 minutes, that's 200,000 connections. If we do that 5 times a day, we have made 1,000,000 connections, helped children make 1,000,000 connections in their brain. I call that being brain millionaires. And the third way is move. I know, kids already move a lot. This seems to be the opposite of good sense. Encourage kids to move, but as brains figure out how to make bodies move, they develop the linkage needed for math and for language. Families need to hear about the importance of movement activities. And the fourth is nature. Children need time in nature. In some areas, this is easier than others, but even cities have pockets of nature. Checking the weather is a quick way to connect with nature. Planting seeds, turning over rocks. Ask your parents to share how they have nature time. We have taken nature for granted and we don't even think of it. But kids are closer to the earth than we are. Their whole bodies are in contact with the ground as they learn to move and crawl. So we need to find ways to honor that special bond for them. And now for the last one. I hope you can see way down here. Does that look like a visual clue? A hand. There's something special about hands. A hand is how we connect to each other. Now at this point, I invite families to link hands, and I'm going to ask you to do the same. Could close and just hold hands. Thank you. We have created a relationship. Brains and bodies are built for relationships. All of our limbs and our senses extend outwards. We cannot even see ourselves unless we use some sort of device. I even wore a little one. And that's a handful of ways to maximize early learning and development that you can share. Like bodies need food. And after this comes lunch. There's an Aboriginal wisdom that when we eat as we talk, we digest the words as well as the food. So sometimes in a presentation, I invite families to share food. I use things like raisins, popcorns, or crackers, and I have families make plates by counting 10 raisins, 10 crackers, etc., just to show ways that learning can be piggybacked with ordinary activities. As we are sharing our snack together, I informally circulate and ask them if they feel encouraged to try something right away. Contrary to Yoda in Star Wars, who says there is no try, only do, I like the motto that the best approach is the triangle. One, two, three, go. How many of you have opportunities to share information with families and others involved in the early care and education community? That's wonderful. Even though I'm not tech savvy, I could maybe have managed a PowerPoint presentation, but I made a choice not to. Nor is there a handout. But 1, 2, 3, go. Beginning, middle, and end. Introduction, body, and conclusion. If needed, we can share without gadgets. This can even be done with children at the same time as their parents. It's not as easy, but for instance, when it comes to the moving or the singing, do head and shoulders, knees and toes, and have everybody get up and do it together. Now, one of the most efficient ways to reach families is to engage them directly, just as I did with you. You are leaders when it comes to family engagement, to sharing with them. You need to help them make every moment count. After all, around the world, children are 20% of the population and 100% of the future. Just before we do that, I'd like to thank you for your commitment to kids, families, and learning, and for sharing. It's a continuing mission because there's always new kids. And I'd love to connect with you. My website is 123 Kindergarten, and my email is teacher@123kindergarten.